Good morning, Abraham. I wanted specifically to ask about the recent situation in New York and Washington. I'm from Canada and have 3 children and a grandchild who live in the States. And my one daughter flies a lot for her job. And so when I heard all I heard was the States have been attacked and they're at war. And I was at a friend's, so I jumped in the car to go home, hoping to use the phone to contact my kids. And because my daughter flies so much, and at that point we didn't know anything other than what I had heard, I was talking to myself, attempting to soothe myself by saying things like, well, chances are she's in the office this week, she's not in the air somewhere. She's okay. I know she just got back from a long trip, so I'm sure she's probably on the ground. But I knew while I was saying those soothing words, I was like Jell-O inside. And it wasn't until I got home and heard from her that she was fine, and that, in fact, all my kids were fine, that I relaxed and thought, oh, everything really is all is well. It really is all well. But would I have been better in those moments in the car before I had heard to focus on something else entirely differently than that, just even focusing on driving the car to get home? Would that have been a better choice in order to align?
The answer certainly is yes. In fact, we know that you know the answer even before you ask the question. But let's talk for a moment about why that is. First, we want to say to you, we would never ask you, because it is an impossible thing, we would never ask you to contemplate something which is the opposite of what you want and expect you, or ask you to expect yourself, not to feel negative emotion in the focusing upon it, because you would be asking your guidance system to be different than it is. In other words, when you hear information, and then you take that general information and you apply it specifically and personally to your own desires, as you did, as you think in terms of someone you love and their well-being. And then, without spending much time on it, you easily extrapolate the consequences and imagine the worst. It is no wonder you turn to Jell-O. Many of you would say, but it is much easier for me to ignore or to imagine good things when everything seems to be going smoothly in our world, in our part of the world, than when we are hearing information that seems to the contrary. You've heard us say for a long time that it is always easier to learn about your guidance system and find your balance in times of less turmoil, because once you have those processes within you, a sort of reserve of well-being within you, then it is more easy to bring yourself back to your place of well-being even in times of greater turmoil. But it doesn't matter whether the turmoil is great or small. We see you, not just you, but all of you, turning to Jell-O while you are watching horrible movies, or while you are reading depiction of horrible things that have happened before. And of course it becomes greater the more you personalize it. In other words, if you're reading a history book about something that happened in the past, you're less likely to feel fearful about it than if you are reading something about something that is happening today or happening close to where you are. Or even reading some prophecy of that which is to come is more frightening sometimes than reading the history of that which happened. But what we're giving to you here, and your question is a very good one, and our answer is a very good one. You cannot focus upon that which you do not want and feel anything less than negative emotion, because your guidance system is set up differently from that. We think it is an interesting thing. Many of you have been listening to us for some time, and you are understanding that the more you want something, then the more thought or conversation about the opposite of it is going to feel bad to you, because the more you want something, the more source energy is flowing through you. And the more source energy is flowing through you, then the more you feel the resistance to that source energy when you focus in opposition to it. Think about what fear is. Fear is the emotion that comes forth within you when you are choosing a thought in this moment that is not up to speed with the desire that you hold. So the experience that you are talking about caused stronger than ever desire to be focused within you. The stronger desire had already been focused globally, so faster energy was moving, and when you choose a thought that is off kilter from your desire, you're going to feel it, and you're going to feel it stronger. It is, in fact, the reason that the word terror or terrorist or terrorizing is such an appropriate word, because it is not only in the action that you witness or in the act that you hear about, it is in the then speculation that begins to run rampant. The power of the terrorists is much greater in things that never come to be than it ever is of the things that do come to be, because humans quickly, often, begin to focus in exaggerated fashion on all of the possible things that they have ever heard about, and they then empower. It doesn't actually give the terrorist power, but it gives the terrorist power in the sense that it disempowers them, which is what the terrorist has in mind to begin with. In other words, the terrorist doesn't care the means with which you fall to your knees, you see. And so that's why we say, when you come to realize that well-being abounds, even though sometimes it's harder to hear than others, and that source energy is always flowing to you, and that you can regain your balance. In other words, you regained your balance because you received information about the condition that soothed you. But what we are wanting to say to you is, it is possible to regain your balance even if the soothing information does not come to you, because the desire to be soothed is now an asking that is rocketing out of you, and it is certainly being answered, and with minimal effort to get back into connection, you do. This is an opportunity as great as we've ever seen for our physical friends to discover, finally, personally, what the art of allowing really is, because even though many have been hearing us talking about it for some time, it is important to recognize that what many often do, even in their attempt at discovering the art of allowing, what they really say is, well, let's just control the conditions, and when the conditions have been contained, then in my awareness of the contained conditions, then I will feel better. And we say, it is a great benefit to you when you finally discover that it's not your job, it's not even possible to contain the conditions. And if you need the conditions to be contained in order to feel better, then you will never feel better for very long. But when you discover that you can come into balance no matter what, then you are finally free. And no terrorist will ever have any effect in your experience. And law of attraction will always put you in vibrational manifestations that match the balance that you have discovered. And that is happening always. In other words, there is never, ever anything that occurs outside the dramatic and specific and powerful and perfect law of attraction. Never, ever. Sometimes physical friends say, well, those words don't exactly soothe me very much, because I'm not really sure, all that sure, about how I or we as a collective consciousness have been vibrating. You don't need to worry about anyone but your own vibration. And if you pay attention to the way you feel and just keep working to bring yourself back into balance as things happen around you or as you have awareness about them, what you will begin to notice is that well-being is where you are. And it is also helpful to recognize that very small numbers of those who are connected to source energy have huge influence in terms of the balance of things. Yes.
You have said, I believe, in the past that people who die or croak, as you elegantly put it, decide at some level to do that. It is not really an accident.
Never.